Hello, dear viewers. Support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it. And also, make sure you comment your thoughts. Now let's start the video. It hurts, you know, Sirius started. He couldn't bear looking at Carlisle after the humiliation he put himself through. You guys love him. I can see that. I'd be blind if I didn't. But it's still painful to know that he isn't with James and Lily. His eyes widened. I didn't mean dead. I meant... It's fine, Carlisle laughed. I understand. You're right. We love him dearly. Ismine and I didn't think that we would ever be able to raise a child, and we were blessed with Harry. We truly do care for him. Sirius sighed as he kicked the dirt on the ground. He flinched. After his little spat with Harry, he had gone for a shower and was given some of Carlisle's clothes to wear. Kicking the dirt caused some debris to land on shoes he didn't own. At Azkaban, the only thing that kept me sane was the thought that Harry could be happy somewhere, and right when I see that he is, I get angry. I'm a bloody prick, is what I am. The only person that connects me to my best friend hates me. He doesn't hate you, he told him. Sirius raised an eyebrow. Well, maybe he isn't happy with you right now, but it'll blow over. Not for a while, he groaned. How stupid could I get? Carlisle smiled at him. If it makes you feel better, whenever Harry heard about you, it was only the good stories. Remus tried reliving happy memories. And we couldn't exactly tell Harry what happened to his parents because, well... Oh, Merlin, I'm sorry, Sirius moaned in horror. I seriously am a big, fat meanie. Now, he laughed loudly. Esme told Harry that wasn't nice to say. What would Harry think if he heard you calling yourself that? He's the one who said I was one. How did you even hear that? He was in the castle by then. I have amazing hearing, just like vampires. Sirius smiled and they fell into a comfortable silence. I guess you guys aren't that bad. Thank you. I'm still not comfortable around a bunch of bloodthirsty vampires. You'll have to start getting comfortable soon. Alice will no doubt take you on a shopping trip this weekend. Oh joy, he said sarcastically. Not only are vampires lethal, but they can still torture you with hours of walking from store to store. At least you'll look fashionable. Fair enough. Look out. Sunlight flooded over Remus's eyelids. A heavy weight pressed down on his stomach, and he let out a puff of air. He smiled when he saw Harry on top of him. Good morning, cub, he yawned. A frown was imprinted on his face. What's wrong? Mummy and Daddy brought Uncle Sirius home from vacation. His heart palpitated for many moments before he could finally speak again. And why is the little prince frowning about that? He's a big fat meanie. Remus nearly fell out of bed. He said Mummy and Daddy are mean vampires that want to eat me. And you know what else he said? What? He knew Harry's answer wouldn't be pleasant. He said, Mommy and Daddy weren't my real mommy. And Daddy. Harry's bottom lip began to tremble as he pressed his fists on Remus's chest. They're my real Mommy and Daddy, right, Uncle Mooney? Uncle Sirius was just lying. Oh, what to say? Carlisle and Esme had been planning on telling Harry the truth when he was older and would understand it. Slowly wrapping his arm around Harry's shoulder, Remus brought him into a comforting hug. Tell you what, Cab. Why don't we talk to Carlisle and ask me later? I'm sure Uncle Sirius feels really bad for saying that to you. We can find him so he can say sorry to you. Harry crossed his arms. I told him to go away so we won't find him. Harry, that isn't a nice thing to say. Well, he's not a nice person. He's a very nice person. No, he isn't. Yes, he is, Harry. Uncle Sirius was just tired from vacation. He didn't know what he was saying. Yes, he did, 'cause he's a big fat meanie. Remus gave him a stern look. Did you call your Uncle Sirius a big fat meanie? Harry looked up with a who me expression on his face. Harry James, he urged. The boy rolled his eyes with an exasperated sigh. Just once. You'll apologize. I didn't do anything. He's the big fat meanie, I know. Look out. Sirius twiddled his thumbs nervously as he sat in front of Albus's desk. In a few moments, Remus would be walking through the doors to see him. He always imagined their reunion to be filled with hugs and tears and laughs. But he really didn't know what would happen, especially after he had insulted that family that took Remus in as if he were their own. He also knew it would be completely different between the two. Their relationship could be strained by awkwardness and mistrust. Hopefully their relationship grew stronger if they realized how much they really could trust in each other. A knock at the door jolted Sirius out of his thoughts. He looked back in panic before turning back to Albus. On second thought, I think I'm still sleepy. I'll just flow on over to my room and The door creaked open and a laugh echoed in the room. "You don't think you're running away from me so soon, do you, Padfoot?" And their reunion was filled with laughter and tears and hugs. "Look out. Remember when Harry was just a day old?" "Of course I do. And we were arguing over who Harry's favorite uncle would be." A short laugh. "James nearly killed us for waking the babe up. I think Harry answered that argument last night." Sirius groaned as he pushed Remus's shoulder. "Come on, I just got out of Azkaban. I can't think clearly after being locked up for so long. Don't you remember what happened that one time you and James locked me up in the closet? An hour later, you came out asking if the biscuits were done yet." "Valid question. Mrs. Potter was cooking lunch, you get. She wasn't preparing a tea party for us." "Oi, shut up. That just proves me right." Remus smiled before he threw an arm around his friend. "Are you okay, Pads?" "Well, now I am." He stretched his arms up. "You'd think with all the money we give to the ministry, they'd clean Azkaban up a bit. Maybe put in some lights, build a Quidditch pitch to keep the prisoners in shape. Wouldn't want them wasting away when you could go on torturing them for years. Only you could make a joke about being locked up in Azkaban for 4 years." Sirius shrugged with a laugh. "Better 4 years than 10. 12 even. 12 years in Azkaban." Remus scrunched his nose. "You'd look horrifying. Imagine that. The fashion icon of the wizarding world looking old and, dare I say it, ugly." "Old? Ugly?" "Mooney, 12 years in Azkaban couldn't destroy my good looks." 20. "Debatable. 30. Maybe a little. 40. Who would lock me up in Azkaban for 40 years? That's a horrendous crime to the women of the wizarding world." Remus rolled his eyes. "Letting you back out was the crime to the women of the wizarding world. Women beware. Sirius Black is on the loose once more. Just because I can get a woman. Don't even try that. I'm quite an appealing person." "Oh, really?" Sirius laughed. "What are you, a 20-something-year-old virgin?" "Oh, now you're crossing the line." Remus growled, hitting Sirius on the back of the head before running down the corridor. "And no, I'm not." "Right, and you have you shagged." "Vampire named Tanya," he smirked as he watched Sirius try to catch up with him. "She'd kill me for saying that." "What, 'cause you lied?" he panted. "No, because I wasn't supposed to tell." Sirius grabbed onto the collar of his friend's shirt to stop him. "Wait, are you being serious?" Remus tugged his hand off and threw his arm backward to send Sirius spinning. With a shrug, he dodged Sirius's hand. "I don't know, am I? What note has 1 count?" "A quarter note." "What note has 2 counts?" "A half note." "What note has 4 counts?" "A whole note." "Good job, Harry," Edward said happily. "Now let's go down to the Great Hall to have lunch with Uncle Remus and Uncle Sirius." Harry pouted. "I don't want to have lunch with Uncle Sirius." "Harry, he isn't as mean as you think he is." "Yes, he is. Uncle Remus likes him." "Uncle Remus is old and silly, and Daddy said when you get old, you act silly." "Father didn't say that," Edward sighed. He picked Harry up and began carrying him out of the room. "He said that when you get older, you get less silly." "Lies. I'm not lying." "Lies," Harry sang, sticking his tongue out to his older brother. Edward laughed and kissed his cheek. "Just give Uncle Sirius a chance. He didn't want to go on vacation because he didn't want to leave you. He really missed you." He squirmed uncomfortably before glaring ahead. "No. Please? No. For me? Why for you? I'm your favorite brother," Edward stated in front of the Great Hall. He dropped Harry to his feet and took his hand as they walked in. Harry glanced up at him with a giggle. "What are you laughing about?" The raven-haired boy shook his head, still laughing. "Tell me now." "You're not my favorite brother, Jasper is." Jasper looked up from his table and laughed at the sour look on Edward's face. Emmett had nearly fallen into hysterics as Rosie and Alice hid their grins. Esmo and Carlisle smiled kindly at Edward as the vampire tried to hide the embarrassment on his face. "Yes, well," he said with pursed lips. "Jasper doesn't teach you piano now, does he?" "No, but he reads to me." "I read to you." "He's better." "What does that mean?" "He was in the army. That's cool." Harry brought his arms up as if he were holding an invisible gun and aimed at Jasper as he made noises that sounded like gunfire. Jasper grinned and picked him up before running around the hall to make Harry laugh. Edward stood in his spot and nearly pouted. "I wanted to be in the army." Carlisle walked over and guided him to the table. Now, Edward, don't be jealous." Harry doesn't know that you don't have to favor anyone. Yes, but he still favors Jasper over me. Hey, Emmett shrugged. Me too, but you don't see me crying. I'm not crying, only because it's physically impossible, Rosier cut in. Oh, shut up. Oh, Edward, it's okay, Alice giggled. You'll feel better in no time. He pinched the bridge of his nose as he forced out. I'm fine. It's all right to feel jealous, sweetheart, Esme said, patting his head. With a groan, Edward let his forehead fall to the table. He heard a creak next to him before the gloating tone in Jasper's voice floated to his ears. Harry and his favorite brother are back. Edward could practically hear the smirk. Jasper, stop trying to get your brother riled up. He isn't getting me riled up, Edward gritted through his teeth. I think he is, Esme said. I think I am, Jasper laughed. Jasper, shut up, Edward snapped. Make me. Boys, Esme shouted as the two began wrestling on the cold floor. Harry jumped on Emmett's back and began cheering them on. Boys, enough. Edward, Jasper, listen to your mother, Carlisle said sternly as he pulled them away from each other. The two vampires tried to lunge for each other again, but their attention was diverted by the entrance of two men. They stood straight and fell out of Carlisle's grip as the older vampire walked over to Remus and Sirius. I trust you slept well, he asked the latter. Sirius nodded with a frown. Is Harry okay? Esme smiled at him as she walked over. He's fine. I just wanted... If you apologize one more time, I don't think we'll forgive you, she said with a teasing grin. Sirius chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck sheepishly. Come on. If you want to make it up to Harry any time soon, you're going to have to get close to him. Harry had climbed off of Emmett's back and was now sitting next to his big brother with his arms crossed. Sirius sat across from him with a tiny smile. Harry, say hello, your uncle. Harry scoffed and looked away. Harry James, Esme scolded. Hello, Uncle Sirius. How was your day? He asked. Esme rolled her eyes. Harry may be a child, but he always acted so formal when he didn't like someone. Oh yeah, Uncle Mooney? The boy shouted, just to prove her point. Sirius's shoulders slumped slightly. So, Harry, Uncle Mooney told me you like reading. Yes, with a quick swipe at the plate before him, a sandwich appeared in Harry's hand. He closed his eyes, took a bite, and quickly chewed the food in his mouth. What do you like to read? Anything as long as it isn't serious. Harry James Cullen, Esme gasped. Carlisle shook his head while Rosier snickered behind her hand. Harry grinned at her as she gave him a thumbs up. Stop encouraging him, Rosier, Carlisle told her sternly. She flipped her hair back with a scoff. The jerk deserved it. Where do you learn to say these things? Esme asked, still shocked and horrified at the attitude Harry had. Carlisle stared at his son, probably Emmett. Hey, Emmett shouted in defense. I didn't teach him anything. Well, Edward is the one who gives him daily lessons, and I just can't see him teaching Harry to be such a wise guy. Remus cut in. Burn? Edward whispered to Alice, although he knew that all of them could hear him. Emmett glared as they laughed quietly. Rosalie smirked at her husband. It's okay, sweetie. Just because you teach Harry to be such a little smart aleck doesn't mean we love you any less. I didn't teach Harry anything, he said in annoyance. It's probably why Harry turned out so smart, Jasper told him. Emmett growled as they fell into another round of laughter. Esme rubbed his forehead. Children, stop laughing at your brother. Harry, apologize to your uncle. But he's mean, Harry pouted. He's not mean, you're being mean. Now apologize to your uncle. How do you know he's my uncle? Harry leaned in, thinking that he caught her. He isn't your real uncle. He's your godfather. Harry fell back with a large frown. Uncle Mooney is my godfather. No, Carlisle corrected. We named Uncle Remus your second godfather, because Uncle Sirius was away. So, Uncle Sirius wasn't a good godfather. No, he wasn't. He was. But he went away and you had to make Uncle Remy my godfather. Harry, Carlisle sighed. Uncle Sirius is just as good of a godfather as Uncle Remus is. Harry fell into silence before he turned back. But Daddy, he's mean. I'm not mean, Sirius whined. I was just acting stupid last night because I was tired and I just came back from vacation. He sighed in exasperation. Fine. Can I just eat my sandwich now? Esme glared at him. We will talk about this later, young man. Esme and Carlisle could feel their hearts suddenly start to beat as Harry snuggled closer to them on his bed. The two were lying on either side of him, smiling softly as they waited for him to settle in. Harry's unruly hair was brushing the sides of his forehead, and his emerald eyes shone as he looked at his parents. A beautiful smile was on his face, and a light blush was visible on his cheeks. Esme brushed her fingers across his cheek and reveled in the softness of his skin. "Harry, darling." He nodded in acknowledgement that he was listening. "You know Daddy and I love you very much, right?" "I love you too, silly mummy," he said. She laughed as she threaded her fingers in his soft hair. "Harry, we love you so much, but when Uncle Sirius said we weren't your real parents, he wasn't lying." Harry's eyes snapped up to see him. "Mommy and I adopted you." "What does adopted mean?" Harry whispered. "It means that we found you and made you a part of our family because we love you so much." "So, Uncle Sirius isn't a big fat meanie?" Carlisle shook his head. "I'm sorry, son. Do you remember Uncle Peter? Uncle Mooney's friend?" Esme shook her head. "Uncle Peter isn't Uncle Mooney's friend anymore. We found out that Uncle Peter was bad, remember?" Harry narrowed his eyes before giggling. "Edward threw him into the wall." "Right." Carlisle tried not to laugh. "Well, Uncle Peter helped the bad man make your real mother and father go away, so we promised we'd take care of you for them." "Who were my real mommy and daddy?" "Your mommy was a pretty woman named Lily, and your daddy was a handsome man named James." "You look just like them, sweetheart," Esme sighed. "They'd be so proud to see what a beautiful boy you've become." "So Mommy, Lily, and Daddy James were nice like you?" Harry asked. Carlisle nodded. "They were very nice, and they loved you so much. They were sad when they had to go away." "Where are they now?" The two glanced at each other. "When you were still a baby, we told you that your parents went to heaven. Heaven is a place where you become angels, like Alice said." "Oh, so where did Uncle Sirius go?" Esme started. "Uncle Sirius went away because he got in trouble." "Why'd he get in trouble?" Harry frowned. "Did he say something mean?" "Harry," she said sternly, "Uncle Sirius got in trouble because they thought he was the one who helped the bad man make your mommy and daddy go away. But that was Uncle Peter. The wizarding world can be silly sometimes, sweetheart, but it's all better now." Harry still had a frown on his face as he slid down and closed his eyes to sleep. "I should say sorry, huh?" he whispered. "Yes, son," Carlisle said just as softly. "You love me like Mommy Lily and Daddy James did? We love you very much." He opened one eye to look at them before he yawned loudly. "I love you too," he murmured before falling asleep. "Mama, may I have eggs, please?" "Certainly." Esme reached over and filled Harry's plate. He smiled up at her and kissed her cheek. She let out a little giggle and laid a kiss of her own on his forehead. Carlisle was breezing through the Daily Prophet. He murmured to himself every time something caught his interest. Harry began looking over until he decided to sit in his father's lap, to look at the newspaper as well. Esme moved the plate of eggs in front of him so he could continue eating. Emmett was sitting on the other side of Carlisle with his arm around Rosie. The blonde was staring curiously at wizard fashion magazine Albus had given her. Alice was at the other table with Jasper, speaking quietly about what they could do before they had to go back home. Edward, who was sitting next to Esme, was drumming his fingers on the table. "Mommy, did you make breakfast for Macy and the other house elves?" Esme shook her head. "Macy told me I wasn't allowed to." "Why not?" "Because she didn't think a pretty lady like me should be bothered to cook for them," she said shyly. Harry stared up at her before turning back to his eggs. He pushed a forkful into his mouth and looked at the moving pictures in the newspaper. "Well, we should cook breakfast for them, but you are a pretty model." "Thank you, darling." Carlisle glanced up and smiled at her. She grinned back before looking away in embarrassment. "Your mother is quite beautiful, isn't she, Harry?" he said softly. Harry nodded. "One look at her and I was a goner, son. If she could blush, she would have." "Oh, like how I thought Mary was pretty?" he asked. Carlisle nodded. "How is Mary, by the way?" The cute girl was in Harry's class, and he had the most adorable crush on her. Carlisle didn't expect Harry's eyes to narrow at her name when he said it. "She stole my cookies and broke one of my action figures." He glared at the wall. "Girls!" Emmett choked on his laughter as Rosie Ollie smacked the back of his head for finding what Harry said amusing. Jasper glanced back at the boy with a smirk while Edward chuckled quietly. "Good morning, all," said a cheery Albus as he floated into the room. They all smiled at him before turning back to the doors to watch Sirius and Remus walk in. Harry gave his biggest smile as he ran over to his godfathers. With a leap, he was in Remus's arms. "Mornin', Uncle Remus," he giggled. The werewolf smiled at him and kissed his cheek. He nodded his head towards the other man. "Mornin', Uncle Sirius." Sirius looked at him with shock before grinning as well. "Mama told me what happened. So sorry, Uncle Sirius. Peter Pumpkin Eater is the big fat meanie, not you." Sirius's eyes became glossy for a fraction of a moment. "Thank you, little pup. That means a lot to me." Harry shrugged, clearly not understanding how important it was to Sirius. "Now put me down, Uncle Mooney. I'm still hungry, and we were having a pleasant conversation." "About what?" "Backstabbing girls," he growled. "Harry James Esme snapped." He straightened next to Remus with an innocent look on his face. "Sorry, Mama," he said with a soft, wispy voice. Sirius's laughter echoed through the hall. "I had a girlfriend when I was your age," he told Harry, laying a hand on his head as they walked towards the table. "Broke up with her, though. She stole my cookie." Harry's eyes widened, and he gave an exasperated sigh. "What is wrong with girls and cookies?" "I just don't know. Silly lot, they are." Esme frowned as she turned back to Carlisle. "He's been hanging around Englishmen for too long." "And what's wrong with Englishmen?" he asked with a raise of a brow. She rolled her eyes and pushed the newspaper until it was inches away from his face. "Just keep reading, darling." "I think it's quite charming that Harry still has his accent," Carlisle voiced, setting the newspaper down on the table. "It is," Alice piped. "He's going to be a lady killer when he grows up." "I saw it." Rosierly scoffed. "If you think I'm going to let human girls near Harry, you're more insane than I thought. They're much too ditzy." "Not all of them," she argued. "And besides, Harry is human. He can't date a vampire. They'll eat him." Harry's eyes widened. "I thought they just steal cookies." Alice glanced at Esme and Carlisle, who were now glaring at her. She let out a sheepish laugh. No, Harry, don't worry. She stopped talking as she stared forward. Jasper's hand trailed up her back as he waited for her patiently. She blinked and looked around with a snicker. "Quiet, everybody. Dracula's coming." Right when she finished her sentence, someone came in through the doors. The family gave a quick glance up and saw Severus Snape for the first time. Carlisle looked back at Albus and found the man smiling happily. It was obvious that the headmaster had asked his loyal employee to come up. Sirius groaned quietly as Remus patted his shoulder. "Good morning, Severus," Remus said politely as the potions master walked in. Severus stopped in his step. His head snapped to look at the werewolf. Sirius scoffed when Severus began glaring at Remus. He said, "Good morning, Snape. Isn't it polite to say it back?" "I don't get one from you, Black," he said in his low, sarcastic drawl. Sirius let out a quick laugh before he sat up, brought his fist to his chest, and widened his eyes. "Good morning, Snivelus," he said with an airy tone, resembling a little girl. Severus glanced at the others in the room as embarrassment flooded through him. How he despised that name. He was about to snap back when he heard a small voice. "Name-calling is impolite. Mommy said so. That's why she takes away my candy when I call people big fat meanies." Severus turned and saw a little boy sitting next to a beautiful woman. "You should apologize." "Harry," the woman started, "greet Severus properly." "Good morning, Mr. Severus," Harry said cheerily. Obsidian eyes stared into emerald ones. Harry Potter. Severus quickly looked away. His eyes were just like Lily's. He hadn't taken Albus seriously when the man said so. Was the child being treated properly? Was he being spoiled? He wasn't beaten when he got in trouble, was he? With a shake of his head, Severus continued up to his seat next to Albus. "Good morning, Mr. Potter," he said quietly. "Mr. Cullen." He let out an exasperated sigh and turned around. "What?" "His last name is Cullen. Who was this boy with his odd-colored hair and nearly black eyes?" Severus stared at him for a minute. "Black eye. When was the last time you fed, boy?" he asked. The whole family turned to look at the boy in question. He looked around in embarrassment. "I fed. You don't need to be hungry to have black eyes. I got irritated." "Why?" Esme asked. "I can't read his thoughts," he answered quietly, much too quietly for Severus to hear. With a quick whatever, he turned on his heel and continued on to his seat. The vampires asked Harry to be quiet as they listened to the conversation between the two. "I cannot believe you forced me up here," the man muttered. Now, Severus. I know you were at least a bit curious of Harry's family." "No, I was merely curious about how ugly Black has gotten. It seems a lot would be the answer." "They couldn't help it." The Cullens began laughing at what he said. "Oh, right," Severus sighed as he began to tuck in. Vampire hearing. "What'd he say?" he heard Black's angry voice, echo across the hall. One of the vampires leaned in and whispered something. "Damn right I'm a beautiful man." Severus dropped his fork with an irritated growl. "I did not call you beautiful, you arrogant fool. I called you ugly." Sirius stood and fought against Remus, forcing him back down. "I'm not ugly, you're ugly." "You guys fight like my friends Julian and Nick," Harry voiced. "What happened with those two?" Carlisle asked with a smug smile, already knowing the answer. "They said sorry and now they share toys and candy." Sirius and Severus stared at the boy, glanced at each other, then looked away in absolute horror. Best friends with each other? Not in a million years. Laughter echoed loudly as two men ran down the corridor, one with a little boy on his back. "Slow down, Uncle Mooney." Harry giggled. He glanced over at Sirius to see the man quickly shift into a dog and stumble around the place until he gained speed and was running alongside them again. A joyous cry left Harry's lips as Padfoot looked up at him with a bark. After a few minutes, they slowed down, tried to catch their breath. Sirius had transformed back from Padfoot and was lying on the floor, breathing heavily. "Okay, Harry," Sirius panted. "What are we going to do now?" "Take Padfoot on a walk, with a leash and everything." Remus couldn't stop laughing at Sirius's expense. The animagus, however, wasn't as amused. His face scrunched up and he gave a grunt. "How about we just take you to Hogsmeade? Get you a kitty broom or something." Harry frowned before shrugging his acceptance. "I guess so." Come on," he chuckled. Sirius got onto his feet and took Harry into his arms. "It'll be fun. Kitty brooms are wicked. Alice already bought me a kitty broom, though. So then we'll get you something else," Remus told him resolutely. "But Mama taught me not to ask for too much, because it isn't polite," Harry recited, remembering his mother's words clearly. Asking for too much was greedy, and that made greedy boys who didn't get cookies after dinner or any sweets at all. "Don't worry, kid," Sirius laughed. "We aren't going to spoil you. We're just going to get you a gift or two. Look out." Sirius smiled as he paid the man. The cashier looked up and gave him his change. "Thank you, sir, and might I say, welcome back." Sirius winked. He was already well known in the wizarding world, but now that the truth had come out, he had become more famous than notorious. Sure, there were the handful of people who were still unsure to believe him or not, but he didn't mind. Most could see the evidence was right in their faces. Sirius turned back to look at Harry. The boy smiled up at him. "Thank you for the candy, Uncle Sirius," he said shyly. Sirius chuckled and handed him the bag full of sweets. He was expecting Harry to go to the toy store, only to find that his godson was quite simple and easy to please. "Where do you want to go now, Harry?" Remus asked softly. The boy shrugged. "I don't need anything else. We can just go home now." No, none of that," Sirius laughed. Harry glanced up at him and saw that both his godfathers were looking at a store across from them. He looked forward and smiled when he saw a magical pet shop. "Do you want to go, Harry?" Harry shook his head with a blush. "No, it's okay." "All right, it's settled then." Sirius took the bag and gave it to Remus. With a quick swipe, Harry was back in Sirius's arms. "Here we go." He walked Harry across to the store and set him down to start looking. Harry gave him a stubborn glare. "I can walk, Uncle Siri. But you weren't going to walk here. Now start looking. We're going to get you a pet." Harry frowned. "What if Emmett tries to eat it?" "Aren't you worried about the rest of them eating your pet?" Remus laughed. "No, only Emmett would do it." "Harry, just start looking and we'll talk to your brother." Sirius grinned. After a hesitant squirm, Harry gave them a large smile and ran into the store. "Eager little boy, isn't he?" "Always was," Remus responded. "Just like James." They walked in and followed him around. Harry was looking into the number of cages, but the two could tell that he wasn't interested in what he was seeing. "What's that?" he asked, pointing at a furry animal that was wrapping itself into a ball. Remus looked in and grinned at Harry's choice. "That's a magical wolf pup. Its lifespan will be as long as yours, and it'll stay young and fit. Once it recognizes its owner, he'll listen to the command of that person only. It appears instantly with a call of its name and disappears when you tell it to. You'd be lucky to have one." Harry stared at the wolf curiously. The pup, sensing another presence, lifted its head from where it was previously tucked. Its head tilted and surveyed Harry inquisitively as well. Harry let out a hum, reached in, and brushed its head before continuing to walk down the aisle. He turned and found himself in the reptile section. His eyes glanced back and forth between the different cases before they settled on a certain one that caught his interest. An average-length snake was coiled and staring straight back at Harry with its dark eyes. Its dark green scales glistened every now and then when the light hit it. "Is he magical too?" "Just like the wolf pup. Especially for you, Harry," Remus told him, holding his shoulder softly. Sirius frowned. "What's that mean?" "He's a Parselmouth," he whispered quietly. "What?" "Sirius, calm down. It doesn't make him evil, and you know that." Sirius shot him an irritated glare. "I know that. It was just shocking. You didn't tell me that before." The two quieted as they watched Harry's fingers touch the glass that encased the snake while staring back at the aisle that the wolf was lying in. The boy let out a quiet sigh as he looked back and forth. "So, Harry, which one do you want?" Remus asked, knowing it would be a hard decision. Harry stared up at the two. Which one did he want most? "Look out." Esme smiled as she watched Harry walk in with Sirius and Remus. He grinned at her before looking back at his arms. Esme looked down, wondering what he was looking at. The boy was carrying a blanket in his arms that seemed to be moving around slightly. She raised her head by an inch and breathed in. "A wolf?" Esme asked in horror. The two fools bought him a pet, one that could easily be eaten by a hungry vampire. "Mama, look," he said happily when he finally stood in front of her. An adorable little pup was staring up at her with its amber eyes. "Uncle Siri bought me a puppy." "A puppy?" she asked weakly. Harry nodded in excitement. "Uncle Mooney helped me name him." "What did you name him?" She gritted through her teeth, glaring up at Remus in irritation. He looked away in innocence. "Favolan," Harry answered proudly. Her eyes softened and she looked at the two. "Little wolf." "Uncle Remy said Favolan recognized me as his master, so he does anything I say, but I won't force him unless someone gets me angry. Then I'll make him poo in their beds." Remus cleared his throat and Sirius laughed loudly. Harry can command the wolf to do almost anything, vocally or mentally. The two have connected and Favolan can be seen as one of his familiars. She was about to ask a question about the wolf before she stopped herself. "One." Harry glanced up before giggling. "Oh, yay. Melinda, stop hiding." Melinda, a name meaning both dark serpent and sweet serpent. Esme's sensitive hearing caught the sound of a hiss before a snake slithered out of Harry's pocket and onto his shoulders. Esme shot out of her seat with a shriek. "Uncle Siri and Uncle Mooney got me Melinda." "Carlisle." "Dumbledore?" "At the Ministry, with Sirius making sure everything is now straightened out." "Lupin." "Rosie Alice and Esme have decided to take him out on a shopping spree for new clothes. The rest of you and your parasite clan, we're going to explore the Forbidden Forest for Albus to see what other dangers exist there besides the known ones." Severus rubbed his forehead in irritation. "Severus, I know I haven't known you for a long time, but it would be quite helpful if you watched Harry for us." "And why should I do something oh so helpful for you?" He sneered. "I'll pay." Severus glared at him before quickly glancing away. Albus would be quite disappointed if he refused such a polite request. "If he gives me 1 second of grief, I'm throwing the boy in the dungeons." Carlisle smiled. Alice already assured him that Severus would do nothing to harm Harry. He walked to the door and opened it to let his son in. "Wonderful. Thank you so much, Severus." He bent down to his son's level and gave him a tight hug. "Be good for Mr. Severus." "Yes, Daddy," the boy promised. Carlisle pecked his forehead and turned back to the potions master. "I really can't thank you enough, Severus." "You can thank me by leaving," he muttered. Instead of being insulted like Severus hoped he would be, Carlisle laughed softly. "Be gone, vampire. Leave with your spawn." "Thank you, Severus." "Harry." "I promised already, Daddy," the boy whined. Carlisle kissed his head one more time before leaving him in the care of a grumpy Severus Snape. Harry smiled up at him. "Hi, Mr. Severus." He glared down at the boy. "That's enough of your tomfoolery." Harry frowned and opened his mouth to respond. But Severus raised his hand. When Harry knew not to say anything, Severus reached out and picked him up by his underarms. He carried Harry across the room and dropped him onto a chair. "You will stay here while I will be on the other side of the room to brew a potion needed for the hospital wing. If you make one sound, one utterance that disturbs me, my potion may just blow up and kill the both of us. Would you like that?" Harry shook his head slowly. "Good. So sit down and shut up." The boy's bottom found the surface of the chair and his hand quickly covered his mouth. Severus nodded, pleased, before walking towards the simmering cauldron on the other side of the room. "Hey, Mr. Severus!" he groaned, wondering why he thought a young boy like Harry would listen to directions. "What are you making?" "None of your business." "Oh," Harry sighed. "Can I help?" "No, you silly boy." Severus slammed his hand on the desk, making the boy jump in his seat. "It's much too dangerous for you to make a potion, and that is why you are seated on the other side of the room. Your bloody parents didn't think of that before they left you in my care. But since nothing can be done, you will stay on your side of the room, and I will stay on mine." An awkward silence fell upon them. "But I can learn how to make lotions before I go to school." Potions. Oh, geez. Harry closed his eyes and smacked his forehead because of his mistake. Severus couldn't help the amusement that flooded through him. He turned around to hide a smirk and bent over the cauldron, slowly adding the first ingredient to the bubbling liquid. "Mr. Severus, can I please help?" "Absolutely not. Now shut up." With only a few minutes of silence, Severus was again interrupted by odd sounds. He glanced around, wondering where the quiet hissing was coming from. He wasn't the only one hearing that was he. He quickly looked at the boy, only to find that Harry was the source of the incessant noise. "Boy, would you—" His sentence faltered as he watched a snake slither out of Harry's pocket and make its way to lounge on Harry's shoulders. Harry looked up with a hum. "Do you speak to snakes?" "Yes, Mr. Severus, this is Melinda. She's my pretty baby snake. Uncle Siri told me that one day she's gonna get longer and will be even more deadly." "Get that out of here," Severus shouted in horror. Harry frowned. "But Mr. Severus, she's harmless right now. I'm her bossy boss, so she has to do what I say." He giggled and looked down at Melinda, hissing quietly to her. "Enough. Make it leave." Harry rolled his eyes before hissing a command. Melinda bowed her head before disappearing from the room. Severus sighed in irritation. Just come over here. Stand on this chair." Harry gave him a bright smile as he hopped towards the man and climbed onto the chair next to him. "I'll point at what to give me and you'll pass it over. Don't drop anything in. Let me handle that." "Okay, Mr. Severus." "Look out." "Is it done yet?" Harry asked. Severus glanced at the cauldron before shaking his head. "Patience, young one. It should be done in a few more minutes." Harry looked around in boredom. He was currently lying on his stomach across 3 desks that were pushed together. He swung his feet in the air while his head swayed back and forth in his hands. "File in," he sung. The wolf pup appeared on the little space Harry left for him on the desk. File in barked as he lunged into Harry's arms before he fell off the table. Harry giggled and stroked his pup's fur. "You're such a silly wolf, File in." "Did Black give that one to you as well?" Severus asked, looking up from his work. File in barked at him before resting his head back in Harry's arms. Harry answered. "He's only a puppy, but he's going to get older like Melinda." "You'll get older as well." "I know. Did you know that when I'm 11 I'm going to go to school here?" "Yes, and I will be your teacher." "God forbid I must teach a brat like you." Harry giggled while Folan listened quietly. "If you're going to be my teacher, then did I get an A on this potion? First of all, Brett, I can't give you a grade because you didn't make this by yourself. Second of all, the grading system is different from Muggles." He got up from his desk and walked over to the cauldron. "I at least expect and exceeds expectations from you. If not, you will be serving detention every night, scrubbing cauldrons with toothbrushes and whatnot." "I'll just use magic," he said cheekily. "I'll take your wand away." "I don't need to use my wand." "Don't be arrogant, you little brat," Severus sneered. "Of course you'll need a wand. You aren't that powerful." Harry frowned. "I'll make Folan clean for me," he giggled. Folan growled at him before licking his cheek in forgiveness. "Sorry, Folan," he barked in response and licked Harry's cheek again for good measure. Severus stirred the potion twice before nodding his head. "It's finished." Harry jumped up in excitement, getting off the desks and running over. Folan was quick to follow him, making his way carefully from the desk to the chair, then finally onto the ground. He clumsily made his way across the room until he stopped before Harry and sat next to him. "What do we do with it?" "I shall put them in these vials." With a quick wave of Severus's wand, a dozen vials appeared before him. "Then I will bring them up to Madame Pomfrey." Just as Severus was about to lift one of the vials, a knock sounded at the door. The two turned to see who opened the door. Edward. The 4-year-old smiled, running into his older brother's arms. "I made a potion." "Did you?" he asked with a raised eyebrow. "And how was his work, Professor?" Severus smirked. Acceptable, Mr. Cullen. Edward smiled kindly. We'll be leaving tomorrow at 10. The Weasleys are coming, and you certainly aren't amused with them. He paused to hear Severus snort. It would be lovely if you came to see us off, according to Carlisle, that is. And why should I see you off? You get to see Sirius and Remus leave. It's settled then, Severus grumbled. I'll be in the Great Hall in the morning. Harry allowed Melinda to curl around his arm, while Phelan nuzzled Ron's face in farewell. Mama said we'll come back every summer to visit you and Grandpa Albus and Mr. Severus, Harry told him. Ron nodded sadly, knowing that he was going to be bored for another year until Harry came back. Can we still write letters? Ron asked. Yup, Uncle Mooney and Uncle Siri put a spell on everyone so they can't eat people, Phelan, or any of the owls. That's good. Yay, Daddy and Jasper were really happy, but Emmett wasn't. Harry frowned before shrugging. He wanted to eat Fowlin, and when he couldn't, he got angry. I made Fowlin pee on him. Mama didn't let me have dessert that night. Ron giggled. Can Fowlin come if the twins bother me? Course. Harry, the two glanced at Esme, who was beckoning him over. The portkey is going to activate. With a long sigh, Harry leaned over and hugged Ron. I'll miss you. Miss you too, Ron grinned. Fowlin, go to your cage. The pup barked and trotted over to his carrier, so he would be safe during their transport. Rosalie bent down and kissed Ron's cheek, making the boy blush darkly, before picking Harry up and onto her back. We'll see you again, little Ron, Rosalie promised. Harry waved at him as Rosalie carried him towards the rest of their family. Carlisle shook Severus's hand firmly with a gentile smile. You should visit, teach more about potions to Harry. You'd be a fool to think I'd willingly go to a house that holds not only bloodthirsty vampires, but Sirius Black and Remus Lupin. I'm sure they've matured over these years, especially with what has happened. Carlisle glanced back at the two men in question. They were currently saying their goodbyes to the headmaster. Remus still feels guilty for risking your life. That wasn't his fault. It was Black's. And he's held guilt, too. He's much too proud to admit it, though. Carlisle sighed and put his hands in his pockets. Don't let your past prejudices get in the way of your relationship with my son. He isn't his father. He's just... Harry, he finished with a soft question. When you left him with me yesterday, I was expecting to see a clone of James Potter. He already looked like him. It made sense to me if he acted just like him, too. He looked away in shame. It's clear to see that Harry is like his real father in so many ways, but, gods, he's just like Lily. Carlisle stared at the man before him, realizing that it wasn't just childhood enmity. Severus held against James Potter. Well then, he started. If Lily Potter was the one who you cared about, I'm sure she would be happy to see you. Aren't alienating her only son. Severus turned to look at the Cullens, who could now be looked at as more of a family than a coven. With a quick glance at the blonde vampire, he crossed his arms and turned to leave. It would be pleasing if Harry had an introduction to potions before his schoolmates, and I'm sure he'll pass it along to the Weasley brat. I'm sure you wouldn't want your son failing a course, now would you? With one last fleeting look at Harry, he walked out of the Great Hall and back to his room in the dungeons. Snape, Black, how's your little chemistry set? Learned any new tricks? Would you two settle down? Esme snapped. She knew that 4 years had reduced their animosity towards each other, and Remus was always kind to Severus. But there were always occasional bouts of banter between Severus and Sirius. The only reason they were civil to each other was because they were both important to Harry. Esme sighed as she continued to try and find Pfeiffelon. Harry thought it would be humorous if his now full-grown Grey Wolf became invisible and ran amok in the Deneley house. If Remus didn't use magic to restrain their appetite towards Pfeiffelon, Tanya would have made him her next meal by now. Pfeiffelon, can you please come out, she begged, knowing that he wouldn't listen to her. The family found that Pfeiffelon was a truly loyal wolf that would only obey what Harry asked of him. Esme groaned in irritation. Harry James Cullen, she shouted. You tell Pfeiffelon to stop it now, or he's sleeping outside. Phelan, Harry said, his voice laced with fear. Come back here, Esme shrieked and jumped aside as Phelan appeared next to her and ran up the stairs. As quick as the wolf went up, Harry began running down. Mummy, Phelan can't sleep outside. He might get... Harry stopped short when he saw Severus. Sev, he said happily. With a quick leap off the stairs, he began running towards his potions tutor. Severus allowed Harry to hug him before patting the boy's head and stepping backward. Daddy has been reading the potions book to me so I can learn more, like you said. Good. Severus sent a glare towards Sirius. If only some did that when they were in school, maybe they wouldn't have failed potions. I didn't fail. How would I have become an Auror? Sirius defended. You barely passed, and Slughorn had terribly low standards. Oh, shut up, you greasy... Uncle Sirius, Harry said quietly, sending his godfather a somber look. Sirius quickly quieted and gave Severus a forced smile. I'm sorry, Severus, he growled. That's quite all right, Severus smirked. Sav, Harry cried in exasperation. I'm sorry, Black. He pinched the bridge of his nose in anger. Esme laughed as she looked at them. Oh, Harry, isn't that cute? You've made them the best of friends. Lies, Severus hissed. All right, she surrendered. That's enough of this. Severus, go on down to the basement. The lab has been replenished for you. Harry nodded in excitement as he led him down. Uncle Mooney got a new job at the bookstore, and Uncle Siri told me he's just got a lot of money. Look what they got for us. He opened the door to show the new basement. There was one bookcase that was stocked with potions, books, and a little cabinet up on the wall that held jars of ingredients. 3 cauldrons were on a large round desk, and, of course, Alice had decorated the room so it wouldn't look so dingy. Severus looked around in mild shock. The basement had been barren last summer, and now looked fit enough to be a room at Hogwarts. It looks quite acceptable for learning. Harry nodded as he skipped over to the chair. Guess what else I've been learning? Severus waited for him to continue. Uncle Siri has been teaching me about Dada. Dada? Do you really? But saying it like Diada is easier. You might as well say defense against the dark arts. Harry made a face. Too long. Severus gave him a smirk. Of course, you are excited to go back to Hogwarts, aren't you? The 8-year-old nodded with a smile. I want to go now, but Mummy said, I have to wait. He raised a brow in question. You, the spoiled brat, aren't getting what he wants. The world has come to an end. Harry rolled his eyes as he climbed onto a chair to grab a book off one of the higher shelves of the bookcase. You're a meanie. Juvenile words. I asked Edward what juvenile meant. You can't say that about me. Why not? Because I'm 8. And that means I can act like an 8-year-old. An 8-year-old that can make his own. Amateur potion with help from his potions professor. Severus gave him a chuckle. You're like my nephew. You have a nephew, Sabad? Harry asked. Not a legitimate nephew, Harry growled, cutting his sentence off. Severus glared at him without any malice. Not my real nephew, like how you are with Black and Lupin. You give them the title of uncle, but they aren't actually related to you. My godson happens to be a boy your age, named Draco Malfoy. That boy is truly a spoiled brat. But he's nice? He asked hopefully. Severus glanced at him. After 4 years, he could say that he knew the boy well. Harry loved making friends, and the thought of getting to know someone new put a smile on his face. Severus sighed and took the book from Harry's hands, flipping around to try and find a simple potion, one that wasn't too dangerous, that Harry could help him make. Draco is a kind boy with a generous heart, but has been misled by a man, his father, who's been giving him the wrong upbringing. Harry frowned, tilting his head. So, he can't be my friend? Severus grimaced, thinking of Lucius. I'm not sure if that's a good idea, Harry. The boy pouted before looking away with a sad sigh. Frowning is unbecoming of you, brat. Harry gave him a quick smile before Severus began lecturing him on the next potion he would be teaching Harry. Look out. Harry! Harry laughed as Ron lunged at him and hugged him tightly. Easlem picked up the bag he dropped and gave it to Hagrid, who was taking their bags up to Hogwarts. Hi, Ron. You're back. I thought it would take forever. The twins have been horrible. No, we haven't, Fred and George sounded. Well, we were until you sent Folon after us. The little devil. Just as they said that, Folon was let of his cage. The wolf bounded over to Harry and stood in front of the boy with a snare. The twins quickly backed up, staring at the wolf in annoyance. We're never going to have a fun day when that beast is around. Philodin, go on to Hogwarts, Harry smiled, patting his head. Philodin barked before quickly disappearing. Melinda, you too. The weight in Harry's pocket was suddenly lightened. Rosierly, Edward, Emmett, Alice, and Jasper had portkeyed straight to Hogwarts, but the Weasleys asked if it was okay to bring Harry to Hogsmeade to spend a day with the youngest Weasley boy. Sirius and Remus were still at home but were following in an hour, only because Sirius had overslept and Remus volunteered to stay behind with him. Arthur took Ginny into his arms and made his sons follow him to the bookstore so that Harry wouldn't have any distractions when he had his day with Ron. Now you two. Carlisle smiled at the boys as Esme took Harry's hand. Molly ruffled Ron's hair and waited for his answer. Can we go to the Quidditch store? He asked politely. Harry nodded in agreement. We certainly can, Carlisle answered. They walked down a few stores before they finally found the windows that displayed Quidditch uniforms and various brooms. Harry and Ron grinned excitedly, pulling on their parents' hands to get into the store quickly. Calm down, Harry, Esme laughed. He giggled. Mummy, open the door, please. She pulled the door by its handle, and the three adults watched the two boys run in. Harry, the kitty brooms are over here. Ron led him to the left. That's the one I have. The raven-haired boy pointed towards one of the older models. Mummy said on my birthday I can get a new one. I wish I can have a broom. Harry shrugged. I'll get one for your birthday too. But Dea said they cost a lot of money, Ron said with wide eyes. Mummy and Daddy have lots of money. I can buy two. He blushed in embarrassment. It's okay, Harry. You don't have to. Harry was about to respond when they heard a voice behind them. Father, I want it now. Patience, Draco. It's inappropriate for a Malfoy to whine like some lowly commoner. Harry turned around in shock. Was that Save's godson? Ron, however, frowned at the name. I heard Dache talk about Mr. Malfoy. He's a meanie, he whispered. Uncle Self said that too, but I heard Draco was nice. Ron shrugged, still staring at the two blondes in hesitation. Lucius was called by the cashier, who was now holding the newest kitty broom model. The man walked towards the counter, but Draco stayed behind, looking at the other toys he could convince his dad to get. Come on, Harry smiled. Ron dragged himself behind his excited best friend, not as happy. Hi! The toy Draco held in his hand flew up into the air as he jumped in his spot. Draco turned to glare at who had scared him. Instead, he gave a shy smile when he saw the emerald-eyed boy grinning at him. He didn't meet a lot of children his age, so he was happy when he met any. Who are you? I'm Harry, and this is my best friend Ron. You're Draco. He frowned. I'm supposed to say that. How do you know my name? Seven teaches me potions, he said. You were his godson, and that you were nice. Draco stood straight, with an air of confidence. Of course I'm nice. He watched Harry's hair sway as he laughed at his answer. Draco, thinking he was making fun of him, was about to respond angrily, but stopped himself when he saw the spot that appeared after Harry's hair parted. You're Harry Potter, he shouted, pointing at the scar. Ron grabbed Harry's arm and pulled him back. His mother warned him that people weren't supposed to know who Harry really was. Harry looked at his mother. Isming and Carlisle were looking at him in concern. But Molly hadn't heard. Lucius, on the other hand, had quickly turned to see who his son was talking to. My name is Harry Cullen, he answered firmly. No, but you're Scar. Draco said, in wonder. Father always talks about you, and so does his friends. I think... Harry stopped listening when he saw Lucius quickly making his way to the three boys. Harry, Ron whispered, I don't think this is good. Me neither, he whispered back. Lucius was right behind Draco, who was still talking, when Molly suddenly appeared before the boys. Hello, Mr. Malfoy, she said snippily. He raised a brow and looked her up and down condescendingly. Mrs. Weasley, he said with a slight nod of his head. So this is your son, is it? And the other boy is... Mine? A voice behind Lucius sounded. The aristocratic man turned his head to see a man staring right back at him. He had his arm around the waist of a beautiful woman who was glaring at him as well. Harry, the boy, quickly ran behind his parents, Ron following as Molly made her way around to them. Allow me to introduce myself, Mr. Malfoy. Please do. I'm Carlisle Cullen, and this is my wife, Esme. This is our son, Harry. Harry Cullen, he asked, obviously knowing that the boy was indeed Harry Potter. Yes, Esme said stiffly. Cullen, Harry, why don't we get some ice cream with Ron? The boy nodded, knowing his mother wasn't actually questioning him. Molly and Esme led their sons out of the store. Father, may I go with them? Draco asked politely. Not today, son. Lucius said quietly, watching Carlisle very carefully. The man stepped closer to him, and Lucius tried not to look intimidated. I'll say this once, Malfoy, he started. I know who you are and what you did. You will stay away from my son. Lucius blinked. Carlisle was gone. Albus looked up when his door was thrown open, and the potions master swiftly walked in. Severus, he questioned. What has gotten you It seems that Lucius has had a run-in with Cullens at Hogsmeade. Albus's eyes grew darker. He would like for Draco to visit me for the weekend and possibly make new friends. Could you perhaps just guess who he wants his son to become close with? Harry, the old man sighed. I cannot refuse him. Albus, you must understand. If the Dark Lord were ever to return, my role is still as your spy. If I say no to Lucius, he'll immediately know that I'm trying to protect the boy. Albus stared at the man before him. He quickly got up and walked over to the fireplace. Bending his head down, he sprinkled flue powder over the flames and moved forward. After a few minutes, he stepped back, and the Cullens, all except Alice, walked through the open green flames. She already knew what was going on, so she stayed to watch Harry. What's wrong, Albus? Carlisle asked, feeling like he already knew the problem. Sirius has informed me that you had a run-in with Lucius Malfoy in Hogsmeade. As Esme nodded, indeed, Lucius has kindly asked Severus to take Draco in for the weekend. Edward's hand clenched. Draco is his son. Yes, he's trying to get his son closer to Harry, isn't he? Rosalie muttered in anger. Yes, he is, Snape answered her quietly, and if I say no to Lucius, he'll know what I'm trying to do. Then there's Harry. He loves new friends, Esme stated in concern. What will we do, Albus? Look out! Draco stumbled through the fireplace with a laugh. Severus tried not to smile when the boy came running into his arms. Uncle Severus, he shouted. Said man bent down to catch him and pick him up. How are you, Uncle Severus? I'm just fine, Draco. Where is your... I'm right here, Severus looked up to see Lucius standing before him, brushing dust off of his shoulder. Wonderful to see you again, he said with a smirk. You as well, he told him with a nod. Uncle Severus, Draco cut in. Father said I could be friends with Harry. He said I'd have fun with him, playing games and everything. And I brought my kitty broom. Does Harry have a kitty broom? Although Severus felt deep anger because of Lucius's plans towards his brat, he couldn't help but feel sorry for Draco. The boy never did have any true friends, so he jumped at any chance he could to have one. Go on to your room, Draco, he said, cutting into the boy's rambling. Draco waved goodbye to his father, before jumping out of Severus's arms and running into one of the rooms. He's quite excited to meet Potter. Yes, it's almost nauseating. Severus tried not to roll his eyes. Have you heard what Goyle and Crabbe have been talking about? Severus shook his head no. They found Wormtail. Now they're looking for a way to bring the Dark Lord back, he told him quietly. Severus felt a lump grow in his throat. Exquisite, he answered in sarcasm. The three most unintelligent of us are the ones looking for a way to restore our Lord. Lucius chuckled quietly. It's another reason why I wanted Draco to come this weekend. Narcissa never refused, but she was also one who is quite protective of her son. If it was the only way to get her to shut up, then Severus's head snapped and Lucius stopped when he saw his friend's glare. And do you not care about your own flesh and blood, Lucius? Severus spat, finally unable to hold the grief he felt for his godson. Lucius sighed and turned away. He grabbed the flue out of his pocket and threw it into the flames. He's an 8-year-old boy, he started. Severus almost screamed at him. The tone in Lucius' voice said that his 8-year-old boy should know his place in the war. But he stopped himself when Lucius gave him a look over his shoulder. Take care of him, Severus, he said quietly, but with much force. Severus stared at the flames long after Lucius was gone. This is Folon, Harry said, proudly. The Draco smiled as he moved forward, hesitantly. Don't be scared, Draco. Folon, say hi. The wolf barked and jumped up onto his hind legs. The blond boy let out a yelp as Folon rested his paws on Draco's shoulders and licked both of his cheeks. He's silly, he laughed. That's why Sava won't let him in the room when we're making potions anymore. Harry frowned. Last time he knocked the cauldron over and it burnt half of Sava's robes off. Uncle Siri made fun of him for a week. Draco giggled behind his hand. Do you have any other pets? Harry's eyes widened as he smacked his forehead. Oh geez, how could I forget? Melinda? He gasped. You have a snake. Yup, I'm a parcel moth, and... Draco stared as Melinda started hissing. Harry glared at his snake. That's not a nice thing to say, Melinda, he scolded. What did she say? She said not everyone is a parcel moth, and they're mean to people who are. She said, you would be mean to me. I won't be mean to you, I think it's cool. Harry grinned smugly at his snake, and Melinda rose up, looking ready to strike him. He hissed, at her and stroked her head. The snake, looking pleased, settled back on his shoulder. She's a silly snake, too. She always pretends she's gonna hurt me when I'm right, but she wouldn't do that. Right, Melinda? The snake gave a quiet hiss, still staring at her master's new friend. You won't hurt Draco either. Draco sighed in relief as Melinda slithered back into Harry's pocket. All right, come on, Dre. Follow us. Ron is coming to play today. The wolf yipped happily as he trotted next to Harry. Is Ron your Weasley friend? Yep, he's been my best friend since I was 4. Draco frowned. But I want you to be my best friend. Harry glanced at him in confusion. Well, can't I have 2 best friends? No, you can only have 1. He scratched his head, wondering what to say. I'll talk to my daddy about this. He can help me choose my best friend. Draco shrugged. I guess the 2 boys finally found the Great Hall and watched Fowlen run in when he saw Ronald. The redhead laughed as Fowlen knocked him over. Harry grabbed Draco's arm and dragged him towards Ron, just like he had done to Ron in the Quidditch store. Ron, you're here already? I said I was going to be here for lunch, Ron grinned, ruffling Phelan's hair. Oh yay, sorry, I forgot. Rowan glanced up and did a double take when he saw Draco. Harry, he gulped. It's okay, Ron, Harry reassured him. Dry's my friend. Best friend, Draco muttered quietly, but it wasn't soft enough for Ron to not hear. The redhead glared at him angrily. He's my best friend. Not if I take him away from you. Thief! No, I'm not. I just take what I want. That makes you a thief. That makes you a sore loser. Fowlen slowly crept back to Harry, who was sinking down on one of the benches. Oh, geez, the 8-year-old said, shaking his head in horror. With an angry sigh, he got up. I don't want any of you for my friends, Harry shouted to stop them. Draco and Ron jumped out of their skin and looked at him in horror. Fowlen. The 2 ran out of the room, leaving Ron and Draco in the dust. Carlisle and Severus watched in amusement as Ron and Draco knocked on Harry's door patiently. Please, Harry, we're sorry, Ron begged. No. Draco turned and glared at him. See? Look what you did. What I did? He shouted. Boys, don't start, Carlisle warned them. For Merlin's sake, Harry, Severus shouted as the vampire tried to calm the 2 children. He pushed Draco and Ron aside and took his wand out. Alohomora, he grabbed the knob and threw the door open. Fowlen, who had previously been told to make sure no one could come into the room, was shocked to see Severus open the door. The wolf snapped out of its stupor and growled deep in his throat. He lunged forward with a feral snarl and tackled the unsuspecting potions master onto the ground. Fowlen, Harry said with wide eyes, but the wolf wasn't stopping. Severus's wand had rolled away from him so he couldn't defend himself from tearing at his clothing. Fowlen, wait, Stan. Carlisle, Ron, and Draco looked at the green-eyed boy in surprise when his sentence was cut off by loud laughter. Harry was grabbing his sides as he fought tears back from laughing so hard. Fowlen, stop it! The wolf was relentless. Get this mongrel off of me. Severus shouted, pushing Fowlen's jaw away as carefully as he could so he wouldn't be bitten. Harry fell onto his knees, still laughing hysterically. He tried forcing the sentence out again, but he just couldn't do it. Carlisle hid a grin as he walked forward and tried to pull Phelan away. Draco and Ron took one look at the scene before they began laughing as well. Stop laughing, you ungrateful little dunderheads, before I kick this mutt into the afterlife. With that, Draco and Ron had fallen onto the floor as well. Look out! An hour later, Severus had repaired his clothes and was now sulking in the doorway, glaring at Phelan in absolute hatred. Phelan gave him a grin before he turned innocent eyes to Harry and licked the boy's face. Severus shook his head. Manipulative. Little beast, he muttered. Harry rolled his eyes and hugged Phelan close to his chest. Now will the 3 of you please explain the actual situation? Draco wants to be my best friend, Harry started. But he's mine, Ron continued. And now we want to know how I can take him from Ron without Ron being a sore loser. Draco, the 2 boys whined. The blonde looked away, raising his head with a snotty attitude. Daddy, who do I make my best friend? Harry said, turning to his father. Carlisle sighed and sat next to his son. Harry, why do you need to choose? Huh? It is quite possible to have 2 best friends. In fact, all 3 of you could be best friends, if you wanted. Carlisle wasn't exactly pleased with Draco getting closer to Harry, but he couldn't deprive a boy his friends. especially on account of the boy's father. They would just have to be incredibly watchful and make sure they could curb Draco's mind in the right direction. But a best friend is only one person. But best friends can be more than one. Don't you guys want to be best friends? Rhoda and Draco scrunched their noses. But he's a Malfoy but he's a Weasley sounded simultaneously. And what's wrong with that? Well, he's a Weasley, Draco finished lamely. I don't actually know what's wrong with that. Me neither, Ron sighed. Only that our daddies don't like each other. Well, Carlisle told them. My advice to the both of you is that you don't care if your fathers don't like each other. As long as you two like each other, then that's fine. The two glanced at each other. I guess Ron shrugged. Draco frowned. I heard it would be bad for my reputation. Draco, do you even know what reputation means? Severus said in irritation. Not really. Father just said that we have to look good in front of people. So let your father worry about his reputation. You shouldn't find it necessary to care about what others think of you. He cleared his throat and looked away. Many criticize me for always wearing dark clothes, but you don't see me sniveling like your father does. Don't tell him I said that. Draco giggled. Okay, I guess I can try being his friend, but not best friend yet. He has to prove he's wicked enough to be my best friend. Harry doesn't have to prove it, Ron protested. That's 'cause I know he is. Not fair. Sore loser. Stop calling me that. Harry slapped his forehead. Oh, jeez. Severus rolled his eyes and walked out while Carlisle laughed and their continuous banter. Happy birthday! Harry groaned and pulled the blanket over his head. Oh, come on, Harry, Draco laughed, pulling the cover off his face. Harry glared at them. I'm sleeping. It's your 10th birthday. Wake up. 2 years of friendship we must celebrate. Ron grinned smugly. 6 for me. Oh, shut up. Knock it off, I'm sleeping, Harry shouted. Draco and Ron rolled their eyes and got onto his bed. Jumping up and down, they began hollering at the top of their lungs. Harry, thanks to some training Carlisle and his brothers had given him, maneuvered his legs swiftly and the 2 other 10-year-olds were on the ground. He sat up with rage in his eyes. More. Esme opened the door and stuck her head in. Harry, get up. It's time for breakfast. And happy birthday, darling. He growled, throwing himself back down and buried his head underneath his pillows. Look out. The boy had been adamant not to leave his bed, which left Emmett to pull him out and get him dressed. Now Harry was sitting in the great hall, glaring a hole into his brother's chest. Emmett was squirming around, uncomfortable. Esme, make him stop, he begged. Violet and Melinda will attack you when you least expect it, Harry snapped, shifting forward to scare him. Carlisle pulled him back down onto his seat. Settle down, son. It's your birthday. Don't be in such a foul mood. Harry smiled up at his father, but gave a quick glance of warning to Emmett. Evil, the large vampire muttered. He watched Harry squint his eyes at him. What are you looking at, you little... Emmett cut himself off with a loud yelp when Violet appeared next to him with a vicious bark. Harry James, send him back to your room. Now, Esme scolded. Harry sighed and shooed his wolf away. Now eat your breakfast so we can open your presents. Harry picked up his fork and began picking at his food. He smiled as he listened to Draco and Ron fight over who got him a better present and watched the twins imitating them behind their backs. Alice was anxiously waiting for him to finish while Rosie waited patiently, wanting him to eat everything on his plate. Japer was accusing Emmett of screaming like a girl when Phelan appeared, laughing all the while, and Edward, who was sitting next to Harry, had an arm around his little brother, grinning excitedly. Why are you smiling so brightly, Edward? Harry asked curiously. You're usually brooding. Rosie snorted in laughter when Edward glared at him. It's nothing, Harry. I just think you'll like the present I got you. You won't, Alice taunted. I saw it. He'll absolutely hate it. Shut up, Alice. You're too hyper to block your thoughts. I saw it too. He'll adore it. You're just jealous because he won't like yours as much. The girl glared daggers at him. Yay, well, my husband is his favorite brother. Oh, don't bring that up again, Harry groaned. Since the first time he said it, his family had been teasing Edward about it constantly. He was old enough to realize that he didn't have to favor anyone, so it bothered him when they just had to use that to make the bronze-haired vampire silent. Edward ruffled Harry's hair. Thanks, kiddo, he whispered, a smirk tugging the side of his lips. Harry nodded while finishing up the remnants of food he had left. So, he started with his mouth full, which earned him an admonishment from Esme. He swallowed quickly and turned back. "What'd you get me, Edward?" "My gift is last," he stated. "Well, along with Esme and Carlisle's." "Then I'll go first," Alice grinned. She bounced off to the other table and plucked her large box off. With a dance in her step, she made her way back to Harry and plopped the large present before him. "Go on, open it." Harry tore the wrapping paper off and opened the lid as quickly as he could. He forced himself to keep the large grin on his face. "Oh, Alice, new clothing. This is wonderful." Jasper snickered as he told him to take the clothes out. "Oh, neat. Thanks, Jasper." Harry pulled out a book that held the complete collection of Edgar Allan Poe. "I'll start reading it later," he promised. "Okay, that's enough of boring gifts," Rosie Ollie laughed. She took her gift out of her pocket. Harry frowned. It wasn't that he minded that it was so small. He was actually happy. Rosie Ollie was very much into getting Harry extravagant gifts on his birthday, and he wondered why she finally listened to him this year. He reached his hand out, and she dropped it onto his palm. Tentatively, he opened the case and frowned at what he saw. "It's a picture of a dune buggy." She nodded her head. "That's waiting for you outside, next to Hagrid's hut. Dumble's put a spell on it so it can be used on Hogwarts grounds." "Oh, Rosie," he cried, but he couldn't keep the smile off his face. She leaned over the table and kissed his forehead. "You're welcome, my little raven. You aren't writing that till you're 14, Esme said with a strict tone in her voice. Harry sent a pleading look at his mother, and when she didn't budge, he turned to his father. "We'll talk, son," he told him, reassuring Harry that he'd try to convince her. "Carlisle," Esme glared at her husband. He shrugged sheepishly. "He's a 10-year-old boy. I think he can take care of himself on a child-sized dune buggy." "This conversation isn't over," she muttered before watching Harry open his next present. Harry had gotten an adult-sized broom and a golden snitch from Emmett. Just last year, Madame Hooch had stayed at Hogwarts over the summer and introduced the Cullens to Quidditch. Esme had finally agreed to let Harry use a real broom, and they had quickly learned just how amazing Harry's reflexes were when he caught sight of the snitch before any vampire did, reached out and grabbed it out of the air. Hooch was still disappointed that he wouldn't be allowed onto a team until his second year, only because of Hogwarts rules. Molly had knitted him a blue sweater with a large H on it, calling him an honorary Weasley. She turned to the rest of the Cullens and said that their sweaters were still in the making and would be finished by Christmas. The twins gave him dog biscuits, presumably for Phylon, but seeing the devious looks on their faces, he knew to throw those out when they weren't looking. Bill and Charlie, who had come to visit with the Weasleys, got Harry Quidditch gear, completely convinced that Harry would make it onto team in his first year. "There's no way they wouldn't let him on," Charlie argued. "He's much too good to let go." Percy gave him his copy of Hogwarts, a history, claiming that he read it enough times to write it down for himself. Sirius had gotten him a cauldron that would be appropriate in a year when he began school, and Remus and Sirius bought him a large amount of sweets and large trunk with his initials, HJPC, engraved on it. They, like Severus, thought it would be useful when he became a Hogwarts student. Ron and Draco, he had learned, had gotten him 2 different Quidditch team uniforms. Not only were they arguing who had a better present, but who supported the better team. Harry felt a sense of happiness fill his chest when he saw them. Sure, it was easy for Draco to get the Bulgarian national uniform, but Ron and his family must have saved their money for a while to buy the Chodley Cannon's uniform for him. After setting all of his gifts to the side, he turned to his parents. "So, Mum's Pops, watch you get me." Carlisle laughed as he stood, motioning Harry and Ziane to come with him. Ziane smiled, taking his hand. "Harry, darling," she told him, "as vampires, we have to move around constantly so that humans won't get suspicious of us. You know that, right?" He nodded his head slowly. "Well, in the wizarding world, we wouldn't have to worry about that. They'd know what we are, and although they'd be quite suspicious of our intentions, they wouldn't question why we weren't aging." "So what are you saying?" Harry said, excitement brightening his eyes. "Well," Carlisle told him, grinning, "we got a house built for us here. And not only that," Molly laughed.
"It's near the burrow,"
Ron told him. Harry's jaw dropped. "You can walk to our house." "Well, it's a bit of a walk. Maybe you should just run with your family, but still. And you could meet our neighbors, the Lovegoods. They're a bit wonky, but Mum says they're good people. And another thing," Edward added, leaning in, "your room is particularly large. My present is in it." "What is it?" He shrugged and looked at his nails. "A grand piano." "Bloody hell." "Harry James Cullen," Esme shouted. How is his friendship with Potter? Lucius asked as he raised his glass to his mouth. Severus looked away to frown. Cullen, as he prefers, has found your son to be quite an amicable young boy. Marvelous, much easier than I thought it would be, he muttered. Severus looked up in time to catch Lucius bring his hand to his face and rub his forehead while cover his eyes from view. He squinted at the action. As a spy, Severus learned how to tell the liars from those who told the truth. Rubbing your forehead was a sure sign of shame. Is there something wrong? He asked, hiding his smirk. Lucius quickly brought his hand down and looked up at his friend. Obviously not. Everything I hoped would happen has happened. It was a fraction, while Lucius was talking, that everything happened, and the untrained eye wouldn't have taken any notice to any of the movement. But Severus did, a quick shrug of the shoulder and small gulp. Severus watched the man take a deep breath. Another small indication for the human lie detector. What are you trying to hide, Lucius? Severus voiced, standing over the man. Look out. Okay, are you ready, Red Fox? Repeat, are you ready, Red Fox? Harry spoke quietly into his walkie-talkie. After begging, oh so kindly, to his grandpa Albus, and promising that they were only going to pretend to be spies with them, Dumbledore had put a spell on the objects so they would remain working. Albus had suspected something, but Harry was sure he wouldn't expect this. Red Fox? He questioned when all he heard was static. Would you answer? He heard Draco scream into as Harry tried not to laugh as the blundering of Ron trying to get his walkie-talkie to work was heard. All right, got it. I'm ready, Raven. Ron sounded.
Harry nodded.
Greystorm, is your station ready? I repeat, Greystorm is... It's ready! Let's do this already! Draco said impatiently. All right, he hissed through his teeth. Oh, you got our captain angry, Ron taunted. Oh, whatever, the blonde said. The other two were picturing him rolling his eyes. Okay, floor 2, 4, and 6. Say the word at my command. Wait, Ron cried. Mr. Albus figured we would be doing this outside. I mean, what if they're destructive? Maybe we shouldn't have stolen these from Emmett. I mean, when did he even have the time to buy magically activated fireworks? Say it. Aw, man. Ron whined in his safe room, which was also one of the third corridor classrooms. Firework 2, Firework 4, Firework 6. The fireworks that were once lying in front of him disappeared. Harry grinned as he heard the sound of echo through the halls. He heard Draco snicker. You're locked up good, Greystorm. As safe as one can get in the dungeons, Raven. Then here we go. Look out. Tell me the truth, Lucius. Why do you feel shameful for making Draco befriend Harry Cullen? I don't. A quick sneer. A look of contempt. I'm getting somewhere. Severus pulled him up by his arm and threw him across, making the man stumble. This is my plan, and it will fall through whether I like it or not. His eyes widened comically. I meant... Slip of the tongue, a muggle named Freud worked with the mind. Severus sat on the edge of his couch. That is called a Freudian slip, or a verbal mistake that is thought to reveal an unconscious thought. Lucius took a swig of his fire whiskey. Before he could question why Severus knew about a muggle doctor or whatever Freud was, Severus started again. So tell me, Lucius, what are you lying to me about? He glared at the man before him. Do you think I have no affection for my son whatsoever? Loud, booming noises from outside Severus's door interrupted them. The two whipped their wands out and pointed them in its direction. Alohomora, the irritated potions master commanded. The door swung open. Their eyes widened as fireworks burst into the room. Get down. Look out. It's lit up the dark, dingy dungeons, Raven, for the first time. Harry grinned. Okay. Last but not least, the Great Hall. Harry glanced in. His family was still inside, finishing their lunch. Sirius and Remus, however, were making their way out. Harry's eyes widened. Guys, we might have a bit of a problem. What? The two sounded together. He looked down at his walkie-talkies right when Sirius and Remus had stepped in front of him. They looked at him curiously. The Masters are here, he sighed. They're gonna have to be let into the plan. What? Draco growled. But the whole point of this was to prove that we're going to be better than the Marauders. Sirius's eyebrows skyrocketed. What's going on? He said suspiciously. Harry let a deep sigh out of his chest. You might want to get out of the way and be ready to run. He stood in front of the doorway. The Cullens looked up and smiled at him. Harry. Alice grinned. I thought you finished your... She trailed off as she looked out into space. Suddenly, her face turned into a sneer. "Harry Cullen, don't you—" "Great Hall fireworks," he shrieked. The vampires, besides Alice, were too shocked to move. Harry felt himself being lifted and taken away from the scene. "You little brat," she laughed as fireworks went off in the Great Hall. "Rosia will kill you for the ash in her hair." Remus and Sirius were laughing alongside them as they ran out onto the grounds. "Look out. Albus, Severus, Lucius, Remus, Sirius, the Cullens, and the Weasleys were now in the repaired Great Hall, staring down the three boys that were sitting in a row on one of the tabletops. Severus and Lucius had burnt clothing and ash on their faces. The Cullens had to change their clothes because the damage done caused the clothes to cover nothing. Rosie was sifting her fingers through her hair thoroughly, still paranoid that some debris would be in it. Albus had been safe in his office and had called the Weasleys once. 3 guilty culprits were brought before him. However, the old headmaster couldn't wipe the mirth off his face. "Can I just say I am really proud of my little brother?" Fred and George said together. "Oh, be quiet, you two," Molly snapped. "What were you thinking of, Ronald?" The redhead bowed his head. "That would be funny." Molly groaned as she dropped her head into her hands. Arthur wanted to laugh at his boy, but he knew if he did, he would get into trouble with Molly as well. "And you, Harry?" Esme asked in a very calm voice. Harry gulped and inched away from his mother. The only time Esme ever sounded so calm was when she was either not angry or ridiculously angry. He started. Carlisle raised a brow, waiting for his response. "I plead the fifth?" Her eyes widened as she advanced on her son. Carlisle grabbed her by the waist and pulled her back. "This isn't over, young man," she shouted. "If you think you're going to get away with this one, what in Merlin's name is in your mind, boy?" Esme stopped and everyone looked at Lucius Malfoy, standing in front of his son with a fire in his eyes. "Well," Draco flinched when his father's voice echoed in the hall. "I'm waiting for your answer, Draco Malfoy." "Father," he stuttered, "we were only having a bit of fun." "A bit of fun?" Lucius glared at his son. "Not only did you three put others in harm, you could have put yourselves into danger. Magically activating fireworks? Even magic is known to malfunction, boy. Or are you too stupid to realize that?" "Father," Draco said softly, "I'm sorry." "Sorry isn't good enough," he answered stiffly. "Do you not realize what would have happened if one of you were hurt, if I had lost you?" Draco's head snapped up to look at his father. "How your mother and I would have felt. Were you even thinking?" Not caring if others were around, Draco launched himself into his father's chest, and the tall, older man wrapped his arms around his son. "You stupid boy," he said, with as much affection as he could. Severus stared at the two, and something suddenly clicked in his mind. He looked away and saw Molly crying at the scene. She pulled Ron to her and hugged him tightly. "I never thought I would say this, Ron, but I hope you were listening to what Mr. Malfoy said to Draco." She sobbed. Ron laughed tearfully as he hugged his mother back. Fred and George rubbed his back, knowing their little brother was feeling guilty, and Ginny was smiling kindly at him. Esme sighed as she looked at her son. "I'm going to be called into Hogwarts repeatedly once you start going to school here, aren't I?" she asked. Harry gave her a hesitantly smile before he found himself in the arms of his mother, as his father checked him over for any injuries for the 4th time that day. Remus and Sirius ruffled his hair before winking at him. They knew he would be doing lots of pranks in the future, just not as extreme as this one. Severus turned back to the two Malfoys and wondered when would be the perfect time to confront Lucius about his little dilemma. "You're an odd one. You know that." Lucius scoffed and laughed at his friend's words. "Severus, I have no time for you today." Despite the man's words, Severus proceeded to close the door and sit in one of the chairs in front of the desk. "A few years ago, if you saw Draco's dead body lying before you, that is enough. The only thing you would have cared about is that you lost an heir." Lucius stood and slammed his hand down on the desktop. So tell me what changed." Lucius, what have you done recently that your son actually matters to you?" Lucius's silver eyes glowed as he sat back down and thought about Draco. "You're right," he told Severus. "I could have cared less about what could have happened to Draco before. I could always make a new heir. Narcissa is quite willing," he said, sardonically. "But now, after his friendship with that dratted boy, I don't know what I would do if I lost Draco." Severus nodded, waiting for him to continue. He sighed quietly and dropped his wand on top of his papers. I didn't really notice it until much later on, but there was that year after he became friends with Harry. Dad! Lucius looked at Draco in confusion. Dad, look at this, Draco told him once he finally was in front of the man. He continued on, showing Lucius a muggle magic trick Harry had shown him that he had finally mastered. Draco, he cut in. But the boy didn't notice. Draco, he stopped himself and looked at his father. Why? He shook his head and started again. Why aren't you calling me father? His eyebrows scrunched together. Well, Harry calls Carlisle Dad. And if Harry told you to eat rotten food from a garbage can? Lucius snapped in irritation. What was the Potter brat teaching Draco? How to be disrespectful to parents. But father, Draco said carefully, frowning all the while. Harry told me that he calls Carlisle Dad because it's nicer and more affectionate. Lucius was bothered by the sudden feeling of a heavy weight being pushed down on his chest. Affectionate? Draco nodded happily. Harry said affectionate meant loving. So I called you Dad to show you that I loved you. The older man squirmed uncomfortably and cleared his throat. He was never one to show his emotions. His father had made sure of that. He looked back at his 8-year-old boy again, and a warm sensation rushed through him. So may I call you that? I'm sure it would be acceptable. A bright smile lit his face. Now, look at this muggle magic trick. Muggle? Yes, did you know that muggles had magic, Dad? Lucius tried not to flinch at the new title Draco was using for him. It would take him a while to get used to being called something so informal. It isn't real magic, more of an illusion to the muggles who are watching the trick being performed. Draco stared at him in confusion. Just know it isn't real. Not like our magic is. Yay, but look at it, he said, and began to do the trick again. Lucius laughed and turned back to the work he was doing. Why are you so intent on showing me a muggle trick that makes them think that they are so extraordinary, Draco? Harry told me Carlisle was proud of him when he showed it to him. The tip of Lucius' quill snapped and the word he had tried to write was a messy blotch instead. He raised his head slowly and looked into the hope-filled eyes of his son. Lucius had once said the same thing to his father, and unfortunately was ignored. Showing emotions to others only softened a man, or so he was told. Lucius was faced with the decision of doing what his father did or letting Draco know just what he thought of him. Severus and Lucius looked at each other. And you chose to do what? He asked impatiently. Lucius opened his mouth, but a flutter of blonde hair caught their attention. They looked at the door and saw Draco running with Phelan, who undoubtedly had been sent by Harry to surprise the youngest Malfoy. When Severus turned back, he found Lucius smiling as he watched his son turn the corner and disappear from his view. He cleared his throat to catch the blonde man's attention once more. Lucius snapped out of his reverie and looked up at him. Well, he murmured. Lucius tapped his fingers on the desk before he pulled back and opened one of the drawers. Reaching in, his fingers brushed against the object he was looking for. He pulled out a brown paper bag and a bottle. I took it from him. Severus glared. You mean to tell me that... He stopped himself in shock as Lucius took the bottle and began twirling it, making a spectacle of himself as he used his other hand to swish around the object. What are you doing? Lucius held a finger up before pointing it at the paper bag. He picked it up delicately and put the bottle into the bag. He pressed his fingers on the bottom and held it upside down. With a twist of his fingers, he waved his hand underneath the bag, as if to say, "Tada, it didn't fall out. The bottle has disappeared." You're holding the bottle through the bag, he said in boredom. Lucius gave him a quick glance. I'm sorry. What? You expect me to believe that you made the bottle disappear. You're holding the bottom of the bottle. Lucius stared at the paper bag as if confused. With a shrug, he crumpled it into a ball and threw it over his shoulder. Severus gaped and Lucius smirked at the man. He folded his fingers together and rested his elbows on the table. So to answer your very first question, what do you think I did? Carlisle and Esme glanced at each other with a frown as Harry sulked into the kitchen and sat down in his place at the table. Edward ruffled his hair, but the boy flinched away. The bronze-haired vampire looked at the others, worried. Cheer up, Harry, Alice said. Maybe it will come today. Or maybe I'm not good enough to be in Hogwarts, he muttered. Ron and Draco have already gotten theirs. Oh, Harry, Rose said sadly. Alice, are you sure you haven't seen anything? She rubbed her forehead in frustration. Yes, I don't know why, but for some reason I just can't see this one. Harry sighed and looked away. He wished that Sirius and Remus were around. After the decision to stay in England, his godfathers had figured it was about time to start facing their past and settle into Grimmauld Place. Sirius promised that after he got the place into shape, the Cullens would be welcomed over any time. "Call it your second home," he had told them. "Well, you probably wouldn't want it as your second home in this condition, but I'll be fixing it up soon." Harry thanked his mother quietly when a plate of eggs, bacon, and toast was placed before him. Esme cupped his cheek and kissed his forehead. "Chin up, Harry," she said softly. He gave her a weak smile and began to pick at his food. "Come on, kiddo," Emmett said. "We've practically lived at Hogwarts already. If you don't get accepted there, you could explore the other schools that have accepted you." He turned around and pulled the letters off the counter. "Look at this. Bobaton's Academy of Magic. Drumstring Institute." Esme shook her head. "He isn't going to Drumstring. I refuse." "Why not?" "They've never admitted Muggle-born students into their school. Lily was a Muggle-born witch, and I'll be damned if the students there bully Harry just because of that." She wiped the counter down in annoyance. She was a great person whose memory should be respected. "If Harry goes there, he'll only feel hatred for his mother." "No, I won't," Harry protested. Esme rolled her eyes. "They only want you there because they want to use you as a trophy anyway. Harry, we'll just wait for your Hogwarts letter to come." He threw his fork onto his plate and stormed away. "And what if I don't get it?" he shouted furiously, before slamming his bedroom door shut. The old flinched and grew silent when they heard Harry playing his piano. Whenever he was angry, he always calmed himself by playing his favorite pieces. "Polonaise," Edward murmured, resting his head in the palm of his hand. "In G minor." "So moody lately," Jasper complained quietly. "Look out." After an hour, Harry rested his hands on his lap and stared at the keys. What if he really didn't get into Hogwarts? It would only make sense. If Ron and Draco received their letters already, then where was his? He looked out the window and sighed. His family was generous to give him the most beautiful room in the house. His piano was standing next to the balcony, and his rather large bed was on the other side of the room near his own private bathroom. Edward usually came in to play piano with him, but today Harry knew his older brother would leave him alone. He sighed and turned to pay attention to his piano once again, but something caught his eye. He got up cautiously and walked over to the balcony. A small, flying creature was making its way towards his balcony door. Harry's eyes widened as he stepped back and opened the door. He ran out in excitement, and the beautiful, snowy white owl settled on his outstretched arm. Her amber eyes stared at him proudly. He looked at her curiously before taking the bulky letter it was grasping. "You're a beautiful one, aren't you?" he asked the owl. He didn't expect the affectionate nip it would give him. His laughed as he opened one of the letters. "And a smart one," he said, as he took the letter out. He cleared his throat and began to read it out loud. "Dear Harry, I'm sorry your birthday present was late, but I wanted to find you the perfect owl. The shopkeeper said that this snowy owl is quite a special one, and I knew you'd love her. Happy birthday, Harry. Oh, and don't forget the other letter inside mine, Hagrid." Harry smiled as he turned back to the owl. "So Hagrid got you for me?" The owl hopped onto his shoulder and tugged on his hair. She tugged on his hair harder. "Oh, right, the other letter." Harry pulled the envelope out and gasped. "Finally," he whispered. His fingers traced over the Hogwarts emblem before he tore the envelope open. "Dear Mr. Cullen, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry." He closed his eyes and began to jump up and down. "Mom, Dad, I got my Hogwarts letter," he screamed. "Look out." Harry smiled excitedly as Hagrid opened the Diagon Alley entrance for him. He nearly ran in, but Carlisle quickly stopped him. "You've got your money, yay?" Hagrid asked. Desmond nodded. They had a savings at Gringotts, but they really didn't have to worry about withdrawing anything. They had more money than needed with them. "I'll be leaving Yath then." "Congratulations, Harry," the giant said with a smile. He walked through the crowd to attend to his own business. "Okay, Harry, what's first on the list?" Rosie asked. He looked back and groaned. "Clothes." Alice squealed and took his hand. "Rosie and I can take him, and you guys can get his books." She looked over the short list given before handing it to the boys and tugging Harry towards Madame Malkin's. A bell signaled their entrance, and the usually busy woman looked up from her seat at the counter. "Ah," she smiled. "Another Hogwarts student. Come in then." Alice glanced at Rose to see the girl looking around the store curiously. We need 3 work robes, a plain pointed hat, and dragon hide gloves. Malkin laughed. Alice shrugged. Make it 5 robes. Come this way for the fitting. The 3 followed her to the back of the store where a mirror stood. How do you know what house emblem to put on the robe? Harry asked. I don't have to worry about that, she informed him as she started to fit him into a robe. It is put on magically after you're sorted. If you put an enchantment on your luggage and your chests, it will do the same thing. After a few more minutes, the woman was done. Is there anything else you needed? She asked politely. Can we get 2 pairs of gloves? He tends to lose things easily. We better make that 3 hats as well, then, Rosiel told her. Malkin felt her dizzy for a second. That's a lot of money, she said in partial shock. The blonde shrugged. We have a lot of money. Then it's not a problem, she exclaimed. Thank you so much. Rose and Alice glanced at each other with a smirk. Harry smiled up at them before looking at himself in the mirror. He looked quite handsome in school robes. Look out. Since Edward and Jasper had gotten Harry his books and Emmett bought him an extra cauldron, all they had to worry about was Harry's wand. The younger vampires waited outside while Harry, Carlisle, and Esme entered Ollivander's. Harry looked around tentatively before walking towards the desk with his parents. Hello? He asked quietly. Suddenly, an old man appeared on one of the sliding ladders. Oh, Harry exclaimed in surprise. Hello. I'm obviously here for a wand, he finished lamely. Esme and Carlisle laughed at his nervousness, while Ollivander chuckled quietly. I was wondering when I was going to see you, Harry Potter. Or as Dumbledore told me, you're a Cullen now. Harry nodded slowly. Ollivander hummed in thought as he turned back to his wands and looked through them. I remember when your father and mother came in here, Mahogany and Willow respectively. Now, let's try this one. He pulled a box out and opened it, placing it before the boy carefully. Well, go on, he encouraged. Harry picked the wand up and glanced at his parents. With a swish of the wand, the glass of the oil lamp next to him shattered. He let out a yelp and ducked before he could get hurt. Slowly, he put the wand back into the box, scared that he would break something else. Apparently not, Ollivander murmured. He took another out and gave it to the boy. Harry shook his head. I don't want to break anything else of yours, he told him softly. Don't worry about me, young man. I've repaired this store more times than you can imagine. Harry sighed and picked the wand up. He gave it a quick wave and was startled to see most of the words that were lined along the wall fly out of their places. He groaned and put it back down. Don't worry, Mr. Cullen. We'll find you. He trailed off as a sudden thought came to his mind. I wonder... He walked out of view for a good minute before he came back, holding a box delicately. He set it before Harry and opened it carefully. Esme looked at Carlisle, obviously wondering what's so special about the wand. Harry stared at the wand for a few seconds before picking it up. Without any movement, sparks shot out of the wand and a wave of magic flew through him. His hair fluttered and his eyes widened as he breathed deeply. Ollivander nodded. Curious. Most curious. Why? Harry asked, still gripping the wand. He looked back when he heard a thump at the door. Alice was staring in at them, shock written on her face. What's so curious about it? He stared at Harry before blinking and clearing his throat. I remember every wand I've sold, Mr. Cullen, and exactly who I sold it to. For example, I told you about your parents' wands. Harry nodded. Your wand is holly, 11 inches, its core is a single phoenix feather. I believe you know, Fox. Harry wanted to smile at the mention of Albus's familiar, but he knew the news he was getting wasn't one to smile about. It just so happens that the phoenix whose tail feather resides in your wand gave just one other. It is curious that you should be destined for this wand when its brother gave you that scar. Harry's eyes snapped down to the wand he was gripping. Take it back. Esme demanded. Take it back now. He won't have it. I'm sorry to inform you, Mrs. Cullen, Ollivander said quietly, but the wand chooses the wizard, not the other way around. Esme rubbed her nose and looked back at the wall they had run through. She turned back to Harry with a sad smile. Are you sure you want to go? We can go back home and you can stay with us. We'll give you private tutors and... Esme, Edward interrupted. She sighed in exasperation. I can't believe my baby is gone in Hogwarts. Her face scrunched up, looking as if she were about to cry. And we won't see you until Christmas. Her lip began to tremble. And after that, come along, son, Carlisle cut in. Do you see Ronald or Draco, Harry? The green-eyed boy looked around, but shook his head. No, I can't. Emmett shrugged. Maybe they're on the train. Fred, George, leave Percy alone right now. Or maybe they aren't, he finished with a laugh. Harry smiled as the red-headed clan came into view. He hollered Ron's name and his best friend turned with a grin. The Weasleys came over and helped the two first years settle into the train. When Ron and Harry had their luggage settled, they went back out to say goodbye to their family. Mom, where's Uncle Siri? Harry whispered. She frowned, but Harry could see the playful glint in her eyes. Remus had quickly looked away from him. They were hiding something. I don't know, darling. The train whistle blew, and they all looked at the train sadly. Time to go, bro, Jasper said. Harry smiled as the boy ruffled his hair and stepped back. Emmett grinned, picking him up and hugging him tightly before passing him to Edward. Harry's face turned bright red when he found a miss being carried bridal style in Edward's arms. Edward, put me down, the vampire chuckled before setting him onto his feet. Study hard. Don't get a girlfriend, okay? It will distract you from your work. Edward, man, Emmett groaned. Encourage him to get a girl, moron. Roseoli pushed the boys aside and kissed Harry's cheek. Take care, all right, sweetheart. He nodded with a smile. Rose winked at him as he strolled over to the Weasleys and gave Ron a kiss on the cheek as well. Molly laughed as her son's face turned into a dark shade of red. What about us? They heard the twins shout. Alice hugged Harry tightly and sighed a soft goodbye. Don't get into much trouble, all right? Remus laughed, ruffling his hair. You wouldn't want your parents to be called in during the first week of school, would you? Harry smirked and gave Remus a hug. I'll miss you, Uncle Mooney. I hope you figure out how to get that ridiculous painting off soon. Their noses scrunched at the mention of the portrait of Mrs. Black. Esme opened her arms, and Harry ran into them. I'll miss you, Mom, he whispered to her. Esme smiled and kissed the top of his head. Dad, Harry said when Esme released him. Carlisle kneeled on one knee to look at his son. Always remember how proud we are of you, Carlisle told him. Harry nodded and gave his father a quick hug. He hopped onto the train with Ron, and after a few minutes, the two families saw them at the window. Molly sniffled and raised a napkin to her eyes. Arthur threw an arm around her shoulders and held her tightly. They grow up so fast, she murmured. Esme nodded in agreement as the train began to move, and they waved goodbye. The vampire dry sobbed into her husband's shoulder. How were you able to do this 6 times already? She asked. Molly laughed and patted her back. 7 once next year comes. Ginny giggled and hugged her mother. Look out! Where do you think Draco is? Ron asked in curiosity. Harry shrugged. He might be in one of the other compartments. He'll find us soon enough. Harry, we've been on the train for an hour, he said with a roll of his eyes. Maybe we should... Missed me so much, Weasley. The two looked up to see Draco standing in the doorway with a smirk. They grinned and helped Draco pull his bags in. An hour with those miserable oafs, Crabbe and Goyle, and I decided not to wait for you two to find me anymore. Thanks, by the way. Sorry, Harry said with a flinch. He rubbed his lighting-shaped scar before looking back at the blonde. How was the rest of your summer? Boring, he complained. I had to go to France again. Oh yes, Ron said sarcastically. How absolutely boring. Shut up, Ron. Draco laughed. By the way, did you see Neville? The 3 boys had gotten the chance to meet Neville that summer. Although the boy was awfully shy, they enjoyed getting to know him. No, Ron said with a frown. Do you know where he is? Draco laughed again. He's lost Trevor, yet again. A muggle-born named Granger is helping him look for it. I told Neville to get rid of that troublesome frog. But does anyone ever listen to me? Listening to you usually gets us into trouble, Harry told him with a grin. Oh, shut up. The door slid open and stopped them from continuing any banter. Excuse me, the 3 boys looked up to see a girl with bushy hair, looking around. Have any of you seen a frog? A boy named Neville has lost him. Oh, hello again, Draco. Draco nodded his head with respect. Granger, these are my friends Ron Weasley and Harry Cullen. If Hermione noticed Harry's scar, she didn't say anything. Everyone in the wizarding world knew about the vampires who adopted Harry. After a little incident during their first time at Diagon Alley a few years ago, people were much too scared of Emmett to call Harry anything but a Cullen. Nice to meet you, she said with a smile. So did any of you see Trevor, the frog that is... Is Neville anywhere near? Harry asked. As if hearing his name being called, the boy appeared next to Hermione. I'm really sorry to be bothering you, Hermione, he nearly whispered. He looked into the compartment and gave a shy smile when he saw his new friends. Hey guys, he said happily, but the sad look on his face didn't leave him. Harry got up and patted his back. We'll find him, Nev? Harry Cullen, Professor McGonagall said loudly. The hall grew quiet as Harry glanced at Ron and Draco before making his way towards the stool. He grinned when Minerva winked at him and he sat down, trying not to shake from nervousness. He felt the hat settle onto his head, and he heard a quiet hum sounded. Harry Potter. Cullen. He grimaced at the raspy, judge-like voice the hat had. Quite a complex one, aren't you? A smirk fitted Harry's face, finding the statement to be a compliment. Very loyal, incredibly intelligent, extremely clever. You live with a family of vampires. They might slip one day. They won't, he spat. They might. Grandpa Albus and Sev are working on a potion to stop their bloodlust anyway, Harry said in irritation. Leave my family alone. The wizarding world won't ever leave them alone if you accidentally get a cut and our savior is gone. My family won't harm me anyway, he whispered viciously. You put a lot of faith in a family of animals? Leave them alone. It wasn't loud enough for the entire hall to hear, but the professors, McGonagall most of the first years, and especially the Sorting Hat did. A low chuckle startled Harry out of his anger, and exceedingly brave. You must be the only child alive who would accept his family with open arms after they confessed to being dangerous. You may have heard this before, but you are just like your biological parents. An affectionate smile found itself on Harry's face. I believe we found your house, Mr. Cullen. Harry's eyes closed as he heard the Gryffindor house cheering, Fred and George the loudest of all of them. He could have sworn his loyalty to his family would have made him a Hufflepuff. Harry rubbed his eyes before looking around the door room. He grinned and got out of bed quickly, jumping onto Ron's and shaking his friend awake. Come on, Ron. First day of classes. Ron groaned and rolled over. Oh, come on, mate. Aren't you at least a little excited? First-year Gryffindors and all that. Neville laughed when he got to them. He scratched his head and grinned, taking a frog out of his pocket. He was hiding in my suitcase the whole time. I found him bundled up in one of my robes. Harry laughed before turning back to the drowsy redhead. Ron, really, you have to wake up. It's time to go down and eat. Neville frowned. Well, actually, breakfast is over. I skipped it. We need to get to class now. Harry's eyes widened as he took a look at the clock for the first time. He groaned and ran to the bathroom, Ron following him quickly. Sirius and Draco are going to kill us. Ron groaned. Look out. Draco glared at the two as they ran in and sat down next to him. Idiots, he hissed at them. Why are you late? And where were you this morning? I had to sit with Crabbe and Goyle. It's not like you could have sat with us anyway, Draco, Harry said sheepishly. You're in Slytherin. So, I could have turned around and spoke to you. Do you know how much torture I was going through trying to talk to those idiots? Just before Ron was going to answer, the door was thrown open and Severus nearly flew into the classroom, his robe billowing and all. He sure can make an entrance, Ron muttered, sinking into his seat. After a little monologue that Severus gave to the class, intended to scare the first years obviously, he began looking around the classroom for a victim. He gave a quick glance to see the Granger girl, anticipating the next words that would come out of his mouth. He rolled his eyes and continued on, attacking Neville with a question. Harry flinched, feeling bad for his friend. He knew Severus wouldn't choose any of them to answer a question, since the man was the one who had tutored the three boys for the past few years. He only wished that they met Neville much sooner than they really did. How utterly disappointing, Harry heard the potions master say. He tapped Neville on the back and gave him a reassuring look. He's being ridiculously cruel, Ron whispered. Draco nodded. We're going to have to get used to this too. He's not going to favor us just because we're good at potions. He'll favor you. You're in his house, he snapped back in irritation. Draco raised a brow before looking away with a smirk. Well, then I guess I'm the lucky one. Look out. Draco stormed onto the field in anger. He threw his books down on the ground and walked over to a broom silently. Harry and Ron stood next to him cautiously, trying not to upset him further. I'm sure he didn't do it on purpose, Harry told him quietly. My godfather embarrassed me in front of my whole class, Draco fumed. Calling me a daydreaming fool, accusing me of not paying attention in his class, and threatening to tell my father it isn't an accident, Harry. The two flinched. They both knew that Draco believed disappointing Lucius was the worst he could ever do. Maybe Severus really is trying to show he isn't going to favor anyone anymore, Ron whispered, as they heard footsteps coming closer. Good afternoon, class! Their heads snapped upward and they stared at their professor in shock. Hoochie Coochie has decided to take a vacation this year, so I'll be teaching you how to handle a broom. And Draco started with frown. What do we call you? Sirius laughed as he held his hand above his broom. The handle snapped up and he gripped it tightly before hopping onto it, floating in the air. Professor Black, of course. That's odd, Ron said lowly. Very odd, Harry agreed, but he couldn't help staring at Sirius in excitement. Hermione smiled as she saw Harry, Ron, and Draco walking by with Neville. To be honest, although they were a month into the school year, she was having difficulty fitting in, and Harry, Neville, and Draco were the first ones who were nice to her. And after helping Ron with charms, she was sure she'd make quick friends with him as well. With a quick glance in their direction, she picked her books up and ran to catch up with them. Her smile brightened when she heard her name, and she stopped herself from saying hello, hoping to surprise the boys. So, like I said, Draco continued, Severus always talks about Father's change of heart, so I don't think inviting Hermione to the Christmas party at Malfoy Manor will be a problem. Don't you think it's a bit early to be making a guest list, Draco? Neville laughed. The blonde shrugged. Malfoys must always be prepared. Besides, if we have a problem later on, we could just take the names off the list. I doubt Hermione will be such a problem. Anyway, intelligent, kind. She fits the standards of the people I would call friends, he finished pompously. Hermione tried not to giggle as she opened her mouth to greet them. Oh please, she's an absolute nightmare, Ron glowered. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa, he mocked. What a know-it-all. Did I even ask for her help? An overwhelming feeling of dread flooded the Muggle-born witch as she tried not to cry. She looked down and slowed her pace, glaring into Ron's back. She watched Harry turn to the redhead angrily. Ron, that isn't a very nice thing to say. She was just trying to help you so you could get it straight. Oh, who bloody well? Hermione gripped her books to her chest and pushed past them, running ahead as fast as she could. She didn't glance back, but she could hear Draco yelling at Ron, Look what you've done now, Ron. It's how was I supposed to know she was there? The boy shouted in horror. Look out, Hermione. The girl sobbed as she picked her books up again and tried to get away from Harry. Hermione, wait. He grabbed her arm and pulled her back. Hermione looked up to see a soft smile on his face. So, how are you? He asked awkwardly. A rack of sobs shook her body again. No, please don't cry. I don't do well with crying girls. It's Halloween. We have fun today with candy and... She dropped her books and covered her face with her hands. You see, he started, my sisters are vampires, and so is my mother, so I never got used to a crying girl. It's a physical impossibility for them. So maybe you could perhaps give me a smile so I'm not stuttering like a fool over here. She laughed and brought her fist to her sides. Sorry, she whispered to him. He shrugged. No need to say sorry. Ron was being a ponce. She laughed again as she shrugged her shoulders miserably. I guess I am a bit of a know-it-all. I didn't have to interfere with what he was doing. No, really, Hermione. It was fine, Harry reassured her. Ron just has a lot of pride that Draco and I are still trying to break down. Don't worry about it. You didn't do anything wrong. He nudged her side and gave her books to her. After throwing an arm around her shoulders and guiding her towards the Gryffindor Tower, he gave her a little laugh. Besides, you're already on the guest list for the annual Malfoy Manor Christmas party. That makes you one popular girl. She looked away. I was thinking about that as well. Weren't the Malfoys known for being one of those pure-blood, thinking families? I wouldn't be quite popular, would I? Wouldn't I actually be hurting the Malfoy reputation? Harry grimaced. Well, actually last year, Lucius made an excuse that he would only celebrate Christmas with his family. Draco was risking his family a great deal by talking about the Christmas party in public. The only people that are ever at the manor are my family. The Weasleys, now the Longbottoms, and you. Why me? She said with a frustrated groan. He barely knows me. Why would he trust me so easily? He shrugged. Draco truly does know how to choose his friends. He believes you're going to be a good friend for us. A girl in the pack, finally, besides Ginny, he said with a laugh. He also thinks his father would be quite pleased to know he befriended a Muggle-born girl, not that he's using you. Your background is just an added bonus for it. Why would Mr. Malfoy be pleased? Well, Lucius became curious about Muggles and Muggleborns after his little epiphany, as Severus, Professor Snape likes to call it, but he can't openly go up to anyone. He'd be risking his family and himself, if you know who were to ever return licorice wands, he said, as they found themselves in front of the fat lady. If he were ever to come back, Lucius would be in a horrendous amount of trouble. Luckily, he doesn't have to worry about Draco as much as his wife. A family agreement we had with the Malfoys. He paused and looked back at Hermione. So the Grangers are really Lucius' chance at redemption, and Draco would do anything for his father. She smiled a bit. I'm honored, being someone's chance at redemption. I feel like a superhero, she joked. Harry laughed and patted her back. I hope you're feeling better, Hermione. Ron won't admit it, but he feels terrible right now. He may have a strong pride, but he really does hate making girls cry. He's like a knight, she teased. With a sigh, she sat on the couch and sighed. One that's written in the romantic style that is chivalrous but awkward with ladies. Harry bowed and kneeled in front of her. My lady, he said with a deep voice. She giggled and curtsied. My lord? Harry, they heard. They quickly straightened and looked at the stairs. Draco helped me figure out a way to apologize. Ron stopped and stared at Hermione open-mouthed. His face turned red as he stood straight and looked away. What time is dinner? The bushy-haired girl rolled her eyes and waved to Harry. I'll see you at dinner, Harry, she said with a smile. Her lips thinned and she pointed her nose upwards as she walked towards the girls' dormitories. Ronald, she said stiffly. He stuttered out a "see you" before smacking his forehead when she disappeared. Merlin's beard. I'm a moron. You really are, Harry told him. Look out. Draco turned and grinned at Harry and Hermione before turning back and talking quietly with Blaise Zabini. I'm just going to go to the lavatory for a second, Hermione whispered. She smiled at Ron, who had given her an awkward apology after abandoning Draco's plan of writing her a letter to say sorry, and walked out of the hall. You're lucky she's so forgiving, Neville told him. Most girls are so sensitive. Oh, tell me about it, Ron groaned. I say one wrong thing, and Ginny never leaves me alone. Alice and Rosie nearly blew a fuse when Emmett told them they looked horrid in their dresses. Harry chuckled. Grandma didn't appreciate me telling her she looked fat in her clothes, Neville said in embarrassment. I was 4, he protested, when Ron and Harry began laughing at him. Yay, well, don't sweat it, Harry said, ignoring the confused look Neville gave him from the American slang. I said something that would have had my mother cry herself to sleep. It was horrible. I told her that. The students looked up as Quirrell ran in frantically. Troll! In the dungeon! Troll! He screamed. Harry's face grew dark as the man stopped and looked around. I thought you might like to know, he said before falling to the ground in a dead faint. Ron and Neville scrambled out of their seats with the others, and Draco was nearly screaming his head off. Silence, the students heard. Everyone looked up to see a grave look on their headmaster's usually placid face. Students will follow the prefects to their houses in an orderly and quick fashion. Go now! They began flowing out of the hall as quickly as they could. Harry, Ron, and Draco found themselves pushed together as the Gryffindors and Slytherins were the last to leave the hall. We'll be in our houses in no time, Draco said in a panic. Then we'll be fine. Oh God, Slytherins are in the dungeons. I'm gonna die. I'll never see you guys again. I've never even had a girlfriend before. Harry! Ron gasped. Harry's eyes widened as he realized why Ron looked horrified. Draco! Harry shouted, trying to gain the blonde's attention. As the students pushed past the frozen boys, Harry let out an alarmed Hermione.